Another key issue that many people are concerned about is security. WION's correspondent Sahil Maniktala explains about the issue of cybersecurity and data privacy in the United Kingdom.
You know, after that recent global cyber attack that pretty much disrupted the National Health Service in the UK, the issue of cybersecurity has taken center stage in these elections. Also, let's not forget the recent terror attack in London and the recent terror attack in Manchester. I mean, this has basically brought the debate forward whether the government should have mass surveillance power or not. Now, in this election, we have three parties contesting for the elections. We have the Conservatives, we have the Labour Party, and we have the Lib Dems. And all three of them believe that they have the right policies that will change the online system. But let's first start with the Conservative Party, and let's take a look at what their first policy actually is. Now, the Conservatives have the most to say about this situation. In fact, so much so that they've mentioned the word privacy 6 times in their manifesto. And they basically want to pledge a new data privacy law, which is basically, they're saying that it will change the fundamentals of how online data privacy actually takes place. Now, the issue here is that we actually don't know what this new law is all about, what it entails, how it will actually shape up. All we do know is, and this brings me to my second point, that in 2018, the General Data Protection Regulation will come up. If you can just quickly show that on the graphic, that's the next pointer. Yeah, so that's the General Data Protection Regulation 2018. It comes into force in May 2018. And the issue with this is that basically what will happen is that any company or organization that handles consumer data has to comply with this regulation. Now, we don't know how the data privacy law that the Conservatives are pushing for will comply with this. So a lot of uncertainty in that area. So a lot of uncertainty on both those two fronts. Now let's move over to the third thing that we do know that the Conservatives want, and that is government access to encrypted data. Now, what the Conservative Party is saying, they're basically saying that, look, we want access to tech platforms like WhatsApp, and we want backdoor access to people's private data, which is going to open up basically a whole can of worms, because again it brings forward the debate about national security versus online privacy. So it's yet to be seen how the Conservatives will actually end up achieving that. Now let's look at the final point, the final promise from the Labour Party. They promise online safety for children, and this has to be the most boldest promise by the Conservatives. They're basically going to enforce, if they come back into power, they will enforce government authorities and also social media platforms to basically to delete all the profiles of anyone who turns 18. They're saying this will better help keep children much more safer. But this is a very tall order, because you will have to basically delete the social user profiles of millions of people across various social media platforms. So again, a very tall order, and how they will achieve this is yet to be seen, and it seems very dubious at this stage. Now let's move on to the next party, and that is the Labour Party. And the Labour Party's policies, are somewhat very opaque and, not very transparent, not really clear, because they're basically saying that they want to appoint a digital ambassador. Now, that doesn't, give us a lot to go with, because all we know at this stage is that this digital ambassador will coordinate with technology companies when it comes to dealing with national security, but it doesn't say what sort of power the digital ambassador will have. It doesn't say what sort of influence the digital ambassador will have. Now, the second point, the second promise that they're making is they want to apply investigatory powers when necessary. Now, this is in line with basically what the Conservatives want as well, but in this case, it's not mandatory. What the Labour Party is saying, that we will only initiate investigatory powers when and only when there is a threat to national security. That's pretty much the Labour Party there for you. Now let's move to the final party, and that's the Liberal Democrats, and they seem to be on the completely different end of the spectrum here. They're basically proposing to create a digital Bill of Rights that will essentially end the government's mass surveillance rights. They said they don't want any sort of government interference with people's private data, so they're all up for protecting people's private data. And more importantly than that, they're against backdrop encryption policy, something that the Conservatives are fighting very hard for. So in a nutshell, those are all the policies of all the respected parties. parties who are contesting in these elections. Now, who you go for is really up to you. If you think that terrorism is such a big situation that you're okay with the government to encroach upon your privacy laws, then, by all means vote for the Conservative. If you don't want that, if you think your right to freedom, your right to privacy is so essential, then by all means vote for the Lib Dems. And if you're undecided, you can, always vote for Labour. But the point here is you do have to vote. You do have to go out and vote. And I'm not just saying this because I'm a British citizen. I'm saying this because your vote matters. It makes a difference. Because this election, let's face it, is not about personalities. This election is about policies. So make sure you make your vote known and make sure that you do it right, because it will change the future. This is Sahil Maniktala for WION.